Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hope you guys have had a great week. Lots of exciting things going on out here. It looks like this next week is really getting ready between Trump and Obama. It is March 5th, and you're with the Truth Matrix, and I'm your host, Midwest, a.k.a. Aladia. Welcome, everyone, and I appreciate you being here and taking your time out, probably from family and everything, to come join me tonight. Our topic tonight is going to be the history of slavery and a brief overview of what actually has constituted slavery over thousands and thousands of years. And then we're going to get more specific tonight into American history of slavery. And it's not what you guys think it is. In fact, I was shocked. But we can trace this down to one person that started all this by one simple court ruling. And I think you'll be amazed because I was. Let's get into a little bit of the things going on around the country and the world. I guess by now everybody knows that Trump, likes to tweet his things out, and he tweeted that Obama had spied on the Trump Tower during the campaigns before the election in October. And actually, back in the summer prior to that, they went to FISA court, and the first time around they were denied, and so they told them to narrow down their request, which they did, and they were granted that. And even during the time that the, debates and everything were going on, Obama actually shared, or some of his people shared it with over 16 government agencies, the information. And this was because they had no idea. They really thought that Hillary was going to be in office. And so they were going to use this as a smear campaign. Now, this is my opinion, but I think it will bear fruit in all of this, that they really thought they had it in the bag, and they were going to use all of this to shame him right on out of the running. Well, it didn't work out that way. And, of course, we know that the huge upset on election night. So I just can't believe it. And then, by the way, did you guys know that Miss Hillary's now going to make a bid for the mayor of New York? How about that? Some bad apples just don't go away, do they? Man, yeah. I really don't know what all. Wow, it's so hard to get real news anymore. That's true. You just really, it's like you got to use your discernment and your BS meter, and you need to have it on full blast. There's some others that are accusing Trump that he has enough evidence on Obama to move forward with a full-fledged investigation, but that he's not, and everybody's wondering, when I say they, I'm talking about people in D.C. that are, in some of all of this, and are former CIA agents and stuff. They don't understand why Trump's not really pursuing this. I guess we'll have to sit back and watch to see what happens. I'm still hearing some things that Trump will be gone by the end of the month. Who knows? I really don't know. I know things are crazy. There's another article floating around out here that Obama has now that he stole a lot of money. I don't want to say billions because I don't think that was it. But millions, and it was given to special interest groups. I really didn't have time to read the whole article. But I think that's another story that's also developing. I'm sure you guys know Tom Hennigan and Stu Webb. My dogs are arguing with each other tonight, and I don't know why, because normally they don't. So I'm having to play referee here while we also do the show. Sorry. But anyway, Stu Webb and Tom Hennigan did a show or something, I guess a couple of nights ago or something, and they were saying that there was a person named Kevin Bell that was supposed to have reported, or it has been reported, that was suicided before his meeting with Jeff Sessions this past week. But they're also saying that there is a grand jury that's going on right now in Washington, D.C., concerning all this information. And this is why they're throwing up all their, this stuff they're trying to say that Trump was involved with Russia prior to the, elections and all this kind of stuff, which I don't believe is true. I just don't. But then, of course, we kind of have a unique situation where we know some of the things going on behind the scenes. So, like I said, we just have to see how this all plays out. Certainly is interesting times that we live in. That's for sure. And I guess the Catholic Churches now came out to explain the bodies. You remember those 800 children that were found in the septic tank over there in, I forget what country it was now, Sweden, Ireland, somewhere, not in Ireland. But they have an answer for those 800 bodies. Oh, and it's a doozy too. Let me tell you. I'm gonna pull the article up here so we can read it. It's a doozy. And also, I'm pulling this up. Well, I'll tell you about some other stuff too that's going on. They actually had a think tank in the Sun military, and they now have a vaccine that they want to use that actually, when you are a radical religionist, they've isolated down a gene in a person who is very religious. That's the term they used. That they've isolated the gene, and they now have a serum, a vaccine, that they can give that will impede that genetic defect that they're calling it of this gene that stops you from being so religious. Why isn't that convenient? But I don't know, perhaps some of these extremists, maybe it's a good thing. But somehow I can't see that that's a good thing. I really don't. And I'm not having any luck pulling this article up here. I don't know why. Anyway, so I guess we won't find out what they're talking about, the 800 children and their excuse for that. The Pope this past week, too, has pretty much gave open-door policy for all of the pedophile priests. Actually slavery, even though it's been going on for thousands of years, what I'm going to share with you tonight you may not be aware of, but it's still very prevalent across the world even today. Although they have a more colorful thing, they call it human trafficking. But guys, human trafficking is just a polite way of saying slavery, okay? Except now we're getting into some really nasty, such as Pizzagate, the pedophile gate, all this kind of stuff, which I think is about to break wide open. And this is why all the stuff with Trump and Russia keeps getting thrown out there in the media, because I think they're in panic mode. Time will bear out on that also. That's a given there. Yeah, why can't I find this? Okay. Anyway, yes, we have the Ohio mayor who spent his life being dedicated to Christ, and he admits raping a 4-year-old. Blames her, though, now. Get this. Blames her, saying she was willing and consented to molestation. I think you probably know what I think about that. Does the word castration come to mind for you? You're blaming a 4-year-old child. But hey, that's nothing new. They actually had on the floor in the European Union here last year, I believe it was. I could be off on my time there a little bit. But last year they actually took a vote. I can't believe this bill even made it to the floor, where they were going to make it molesting children and lower the age of consent for kids to like 5, 6 years old. That they were responsible enough to know if they wanted to have sex with a grown-up. You can't make this stuff up, folks. This is real. This is the power elite brokers of our world are this sick. And I know for you guys, you can understand it because you're out here wading through all this and went down all these dark rabbit holes and stuff. But just think about it for a minute. the average person out here who looks up to their movie actors, actresses, their politicians, you know, in their sight they can't do any wrong across political aisles. It doesn't matter. But if they're in the limelight, if they're in TV, well, I mean, you know, we've got people in our news media. I mean, it permeates throughout all of society. You've got doctors and lawyers and police that cover this up for these people of high social status. They like to call themselves, call them scum in high places, low lives in high places. There you go. But I mean, it is what it is, and it, you know, to borrow the phrase, it's time to drain the swamp. And will that make it all go away overnight? No. But if you start taking out some of these ringleaders and you start making serious examples instead of always a smack on the hand, just like this Ohio mayor. He's up on these charges, and he's, I guess, going to court right now. But how are you going to sit there and accuse and say that a 4-year-old caused it? Doesn't say much for your mentality, does it, sir? And I'll use that term loosely for him. That's for sure. So, I don't know where all this goes, but I know that we have to start cleaning up all of this stuff, and we can only hope that Trump or someone who follows him, if he's not the person, whoever follows him, that there are good people within our Pentagon and in our government, white hats, white knights, whatever you want to call them, that are going to see this through to the finish. Because we have to move in a different direction. And our children are our future. We have to invest in our children, not only for education, but we need to give them a safe environment. And we really need to hold the people that run this world, we need to hold their feet to the fire and hold them accountable. Otherwise, we get the government that we deserve. That's why we got what we have right now. It's because we became complacent. We threw our hands up in self-defeat and said, what can I do to change it? I'm just one person. So we give our power away, because there's a lot we can do, just with our voice, with our dollar, with these corporations. We moan and we complain. Yeah, we go right back out to the store and we purchase their products. Without us, the consumer, they can't survive. Okay, what about that stock market? It hit over 21,000 this week. Is that insanity or what? Oh, yeah. Don't know where that's all headed. But I hear there could be a correction by right around about the 15th. There's something about a debt ceiling that Congress passed a new law back in 2015 that isn't going to allow them to be able to go out and borrow money over their debt ceiling. But the new debt ceiling starts on the 16th of March. Now, I guess Trump came in with quite a surplus, like in the $300 billion, and now they must have really been spending some money, because they're down to around $119 billion, I think. And I guess they had to get it down, but I'm trying to figure out what they spent it on. I don't know. They didn't say that. Anyway, I'm going to click back over here because I've been trying to find some of these articles for everybody. But I think that before we pass judgment on anything that's going on in the Trump administration, because, I mean, seriously, guys, did you listen to his speech this week? What was that, Monday, Tuesday night? I thought it was excellent. He writes his own speeches. There's nobody writing those for him. And to me, it don't look like he has a teleprompter either. That he's speaking from his own words. And did you hear that Valerie Jarrett has moved in and set up a spy center? That might be a real technical term to use at this point. Has set up a spy center in the Obama's home that they purchased there in D.C. Wow. Yeah. Somebody needs to pay her a visit and ask her to come for a meeting to have a talk. And I wouldn't be surprised if that isn't what's going to start happening here over the course of the next week or two. Because what I hear is that Trump's pretty upset about this wiretapping. And, actually, guys, if you think about it, there are laws in place for that. I mean, I don't know exactly what the law is. I can't quote it to you. But I think it might be called treason when you do something like that, because you're messing with the natural order of our political cycle, election cycles. And now, over the years, the Obama administration has had to apologize to the French president. They had to apologize to Japan. There's a couple of other countries, too, Germany, for spying on them. Huh? No joke. Seriously. Look it up. It's out there. So this has been an ongoing thing with this former administration, with the Obama. But, I mean, that's just the corruptness of this political system that we're in right now, particularly with the Democrats. But word is out that this is going to make Watergate look like a robbery down at the corner convenience store. Okay? That's how big this is. And I would have to probably say that there are a whole lot of entities within the government that participated in this and still didn't sound the alarm bells. So there was a lot of collusion, and this is a conspiracy. And we'll only hope and pray that the Trumpster actually goes ahead and proceeds with an investigation of this. And if enough people start demanding this, there'll have to be an investigation into this. I mean, it's time to clean things up. Seriously. I'm going to put this in Q&A for a minute. If anybody wants to come in and talk, if they have other news-worthy items that they want to, I'd be happy for you to take the floor for a minute. If not, then I'm going to get into presentation tonight about global history of slavery. So, anybody want to come in? My usual sidekick, Martha, she is sick tonight. A lot of my friends all over the country are sick. And I still haven't seemed to be able to get rid of whatever this stuff is either. I mean, they've coined a phrase. It's called chemtrail flu. And I think that's pretty much what it is. But, boy, it's a direct assault on us. And I know you guys are looking up and you see all of the, I mean, it's like checkerboards up there in the sky. They start early in the morning. And it could be a beautiful day. Sky, blue, everything. All of a sudden you look up and here they come. Yeah. Okay. Turn that off. Okay. Anyway, let's get into the history. Oh, what am I doing here? I hear somebody's still on. Oh, there's Rodney. Okay. Hi, Rodney.
How are you today?
All right. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
Good.
Yeah, if you don't mind, before you get into your dissertation, I'd like to add on that I think you provided some excellent information thus far, but I want to make sure that we also identify that it's not just the Obama administration that has been corrupted.
Oh, no.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that that's put out there because of the fact that
it's just the latest of a whole line of them.
That's right. Corruption's been there for more than a century. So
God, it's going ongoing. Even back to Lincoln.
That's right.
Even back to Lincoln. Lincoln ain't who everybody thinks he is either. And if everybody thinks it was about freeing the slaves, I want you to go stand on your head till we come back to the show again next Sunday.
That's right.
It certainly was not. No. In fact, I talked about this week before last, and I read you guys some stuff where Lincoln actually wanted to take all the slaves and send them down to South America, to the jungles down there.
Mm.
Yes. That was his plan. I forget what it was that stopped him where that didn't. Oh, I know it. His assassination. Mm-hmm. If Lincoln hadn't been assassinated, he was going to round up all the slaves and take them to South America.
Right.
Yeah. So, we really haven't gotten to experience a republic, but only for a few years. And I question even that. And so the groundwork was laid there for us. And many good men that day, when they signed that Declaration of Independence, had a true intent, and with their hearts, they pledged everything, their lives, their families, and all their fortunes, because these weren't poor people. And most of them, though, by the time the Revolutionary War was over, were either dead or they had lost everything. Everything. Trying to secure our freedom here in this country. And even when, I forget what gentleman it was that came out after their deliberation for long hours, and a woman was standing at the door, and she says, "What do we got?" He said, "Ma'am, we've given you a republic. Now let's see if you can keep it." Mm-hmm. Well, didn't take long, did it? Before that was gone. Okay?
Not at all.
No. And we've been living ever since under this tyranny called the Federal Reserve. This is why Jackson was killed. This is why Kennedy was killed. There's been numerous presidents that were assassinated that we just didn't know, but it was involved with them trying to get us away from this cabal, these bankers. They've been around for thousands of years, guys, and they're the scourge of this planet, and they absolutely have no concern for human life. We're all a commodity to them. I mean, for Christ's sake, we even are. The minute we come out of our mother's womb in the birthing canal, we are maritime law property, and there is a birth certificate with a bond. Our birth certificates are bond. And I'm sure you guys have heard all this before. But just to reiterate, this is what's been going on. In the background, underneath of all of this stuff. We are owned by this government, and more specifically, the Vatican. Every last one of us with a birth certificate. And that's why a lot of people now often have their children at home to avoid the birth certificate thing in the bonds. All you got to do is go to any bond company and take your birth certificate red code number, and they'll tell you what you're worth and trading on the stock market. What do you think about this stock market hitting 21,000 this week, Rodney?
Honestly, I think it's being propped up myself.
We know that.
Yeah,
we know that.
I think what they're doing is they're deliberately trying to crash the system.
Well, I read today too that they're talking about that they're saying this month they're actually saying the black swan event in some senses by the 15th when all this kicks in with this debt ceiling thing. But they're saying the markets could lose 20% overnight. So are they hyperinflating it right now to kind of give it that padding for the anticipation of that 20% drop?
I think so. But keep in mind that that's one scenario, okay? And then I've been doing a lot of studying on this, and there's another process that's behind the scenes that not too many people know about. Okay,
oh,
I'm
really?
going to go deep. I'm going to go a little deeper on you all. Okay.
Okay.
And that is they have in California quantum computers.
Well, I mean, there's some noise in your background. Hold that thought for a minute. But there's some noise in the background there that's okay. Coming through on the recording here.
Yeah. Yes. Hang on a minute, okay?
Okay.
All right.
So anyway, this should be interesting to hear what his take is on this stock market thing, because I've been watching this.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, Yes.
Okay, So again, there's another side of this entire issue that I've been studying on, and from what I've looked at, they also have something called quantum computers.
Yes.
Okay, and these quantum computers allow them to go out and make determinations on what things that can be done to make the appropriate changes to continue on with the current system that's in place.
Are you talking about algorithms now?
That's correct.
Okay.
And what I'm concerned is that these algorithms that are received via the quantum computer is allowing them to continue on with the current SWIFT system that's in place.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, how long will that last? Will it continue on in moving forward with the current system that we currently perform our economic processes in? And that's the main concern that I have, because I don't know too many people who are, if there anybody's involved in studying this, but based on what I've looked at, they can go out via the quantum computer and pull information from other realms that assist them to proceed with the current process that they're using. Now, I don't know if China is doing that as well, but to my understanding, it's only here in the US. They are.
Yes, I just read an article about that a couple of days ago.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, I'm still looking into this. I'm swaying back and forth based on whether or not this process that we currently live in will continue on. But going even deeper, okay, they also have the ability to pull in certain aspects of other dimensions.
Yes.
And
in fact,
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add, too, that I actually saw a video or read something here a year or two ago that there was some of the people that were working on making these quantum computers, and they started having bleedovers because they actually make them somehow. I don't know how, but somehow they're making them over in the next dimension.
That's right. That's right.
How does that work, Rodney? How are they?
Well, to my understanding, Midwest, they have these quantum computers. Basically, the one that I've seen, not personally, but on the internet, the one that I've seen looks like a huge monolith, and it looks like blocks that resemble Stonehenge. And basically, they have this computer chip that they keep at absolute zero. And it allows, because it's at absolute zero, it allows them to reach out to parallel universes that are pretty much identical to our own.
Yeah.
Okay, but very well maybe even more highly technologically advanced. Okay, and
well then I have a question that comes to mind, Rodney. So are we in a quantum time construct, a fake time construct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because there's no such thing as time.
True. That's true.
So in other words, once we all come to that conclusion, okay, that there's no such thing as time, then we individually may be able to conduct some form of quantum activity on our end from a spiritual standpoint.
Okay. Well, tell everyone what that actually means, quantum.
Well, it's the quantum meaning the smallest of I guess you say anything. That's not wordy with the definition, but meaning the smallest particle. Okay, and if
talking about like atoms and photons and
that's
stuff,
right? Well, even smaller than that, to my understanding. But we can correlate that with the Mandela effect.
Right.
Okay. Right. Okay. So let's say there's a gentleman who did a video, and I forget his name, but he indicated that we have all died. Okay. Ooh. And what that means is that we all have our own planetary realm, if you will. So, for example, you could have you could have a heart attack, right?
Right.
In the middle of the night. But lo and behold, you will wake up the next morning. But that Midwest that had the heart attack the night before, there's that realm that you left is still in existence.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's thought-provoking.
Yeah.
That's
so
very.
In other words, as the Bible says, God says there are many mansions within my house, or somewhere along those lines.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's when I begin to look into what this gentleman was saying, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes
sense. This Mandela effect, I believe that we're having bleed overs from another timeline.
That's correct. Or multiple timelines.
How that happened.
Say that again?
I don't know how that happened, but it has.
Absolutely it has.
Yeah.
But many are saying that it comes from either the quantum computers and or CERN.
I'm thinking maybe both.
Yeah.
And maybe they were created in tandem for this very thing that they're doing.
That could very well be true.
Which means very
exactly. Which means we could be living the same experience. And I wouldn't necessarily say that, but in other words, we could be living in this current SWIFT system, and I wouldn't say forever, but for example, for 20 years, until they decide to make a change over to the new SIP system.
Well, Rodney, I think since we're on this subject that we do have to touch upon something else here too.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And that is the Philadelphia experiment.
Absolutely.
Because, what they did was they also messed with the fabric of time doing that. Mm-hmm. And, of course, everybody, I'm sure, knows the story. If you haven't, it's a very interesting story. Go read it. That, when they came back from that other dimension, there were sailors that were stuck in the walls of the ship and all kinds of weird things. Mm-hmm. But they say that caused a time loop. And I don't remember if it's 20 years or 40 years. We have these time loops that go around where it caused a fluctuation in timelines. Mm-hmm. And now you have CERN, and you have these quantum computers who, like we just said earlier, were actually developed and made interdimensional. And you can't help but wonder if this whole planetary thing that we call the Matrix is ran, and I know you've heard this before, Rodney, and I'm sure everybody others out here have too, where they talk about that we're in an artificial AI continuum.
Right. That's right.
Okay, so there's like some big master AI out there that's orchestrating this whole thing here on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you break free of that?
That's a good question.
Yeah,
very good question. But I think ultimately it boils down to collective consciousness.
Absolutely, raising our consciousness and ascending out of this false construct of what we have man-made time.
Mm-hmm.
When you get back down to, and there's lots out here of some really studied people who call this quantum unity. I'm not saying it right. Help me out here, Rodney. It's a unified field.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Unified field, where we all become one. Mm-hmm. And I know that sounds new agey, but we collectively become one in consciousness. Okay? And, all we can do, what is everyone's definition of consciousness out here? I have my own. I'm just curious as to what you feel it is.
Honestly, I think it varies per nation. You know, there's you can go to India and people are conscious there, but it's based on the god Shiva. You know, you go to Vietnam and it varies. It varies. And that's across continents. But overall,
what raises one's consciousness?
Say that again, please.
What raises one's consciousness? Can you?
One raises one's consciousness when they're able to go within. Okay, because that old saying, if you do not go within, you go without.
Right.
Okay. If one can go within and understand or really meditate on the atoms and molecules that they have within themselves, then I truly believe that they would be able to become more conscious and more aware of their surroundings.
And it's about knowledge,
Absolutely.
Get wisdom. Yes.
That's right. Now I've been going within for the past 10 years or so, and I've gotten to the point where information is literally downloaded to me.
Through the Akashic Records, and we all have access to that.
That's right. Absolutely.
And
right.
that is the library of the universe. And it's accessible. You can go to school every night or day, whichever you choose. It's there.
That's
and, that's how do, here's a good example. How do we have scientists when as a planetary whole, we reach a certain level of knowing and consciousness, all of a sudden you have 4 or 5 different scientists or inventors from around the world who don't know each other that all of a sudden invent the same thing. It's because they've tapped in to the Akashic Records.
That may be true, but also keep this in mind. Okay, a lot of the technology that we have today is not new technology; it's ancient technology.
Absolutely.
And what happens, based on what I've studied, is that the latest paradigm that's in place, the technology is taken from all the specific nations or all the specific ancient ruins, and then held within a specific location, such as the Vatican. And then as time progresses, in order to build up the civilization or the world civilization, then that technology is then dispersed to certain areas of the planet. So if someone has a general understanding of technology in some way, shape, or form, then that information can be dispersed to a specific person within those nations, and thus you have someone developing the same type of technology.
But you see, what we need to do and what we have to do collectively as humanity is that we need to bring all the third world countries up to first world. And every child, there's no reason on this planet with all the resources and all the rich people out here, there's no reason why every child across this planet should not be able to have access to a computer.
That's true, but at the same time, it was keep in mind that we still need to stay connected to the planet.
Yeah,
but I'm problem.
What I'm saying though is that we have children in Africa, South America, India, who may be our next Einstein, and because they don't have that accessibility like first world countries do, to get that knowledge, to get that specialized training, their talent that they came to this world to bring goes untapped.
Oh, I agree with you, but my statement was referencing to making sure we keep a balance.
Well, that we have to. Yes.
Exactly.
But we're not in balance now.
Huh?
We're not in balance now.
That's right. That's right. We're taking technology and using it to expand knowledge, but at the same time we're leaving nature behind.
Correct.
That's the problem.
We're destroying it. And when you destroy nature, you destroy yourself because we are nature.
That's right.
But we have madmen at the helm who don't care.
That's right.
They think they can get off planet. which I think they probably found out by now if they can. I'm sure you guys have heard what all's going down there in the Antarctic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting down there. They're now saying that they believe that is ancient Atlantis down there. That was covered over in the last pole shift. And they're finding all kinds of ancient technology. Okay? In fact, I happen to know someone who has a friend who has been down there. But, they're evacuating all the civilian people right now. And the military's coming in down there because the cabal's been held up down there for a while. Don't know why, but I'm sure it has to do with some kind of ancient technology, wouldn't you safely say?
Yeah. There's, how can I say? We can only speculate on our end. Okay. Who's to say that, yes, we live in a flat Earth, yes, we do have a firmament over top of us, but at the same time, outside of the firmament, or they're on the other side of the Arctic, who's to say there are not other continents there?
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
This flat Earth thing, I'm just now starting to kind of do some research on that. I know I'm going to give a shout-out to JB. He was here earlier because JB is convinced that this flat Earth might be real, too. My jury's still out. I don't know because I've done some out-of-body experiences, and I'm telling you that the Earth is round. But the way I saw it when I was out of body and traveled out around the Earth. So I don't have any comment on that right now. It's a little difficult for me to wrap my head around. I do know, though, that the early astronomers, now when I say early, we're talking about in Europe, that, you always heard these stories of sailors that they were afraid that if they sailed out too far, they'd just drop off the Earth because they thought it was flat.
That's true.
Yeah. Now, that had to have started from somewhere because these sailors, you can read lots of stories of those along those lines of thought. Back in the early mariners of European descent.
Mm-hmm.
Where did that get started?
Well, I think it came out of Egypt, because if you can go out on you can Google it right now. Whereas, and I forget the so-called ancient goddess, but her body is stretched over a land.
Talking about Nut and Nut.
I believe so. And within her body there are stars.
Yes.
But then there's on the outside of her body there is a boat or a ship.
Yes. Yeah.
So to look at that depiction, which is on one of the walls in Egypt, which is more. It's not modern, if you will. So to look at that, to look at the information that's currently coming out now, to me it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense with so many lies that are being told about us supposedly going to Mars or some of the other planets out there. There's a lot of evidence that's coming out that's proven it to be a lie.
That way?
That would be proven it to be a lie that the Earth is round.
Well, I think they're pretty much concluding too that we didn't go to the moon either.
Well, we may have, because to me, you look at the yin yang symbol. The yin yang symbol depicts that the moon and the sun is within the firmament.
Yeah, but we know that Stanley Kubrick and them staged the one moon landing in a Hollywood studio.
Right. We do know that.
We know that.
But if the moon is within the firmament, then the moon would have to be between 50 to 70 miles. If that.
Yeah. Well, There certainly is a lot of talk, and I know even Phil Valentine is now of the mind to start believing in the flat Earth theory too.
That's right.
And he's a famous lecturer, about ancient Kemet and different things in consciousness community. So I'm gonna, Rodney, you can just hang with me here, but I'm gonna go ahead and get into the history of our slavery real quick and talk about that. And then we can talk some more afterwards. But I've got some people that are impatient, and I think they want me to get on with this.
All right, I'll mute out.
No problem. Anyway, I'm going to give you a backdrop of going way back on the history of slavery before we get into colonialism's slavery. And it expands every culture, nationality, even religion, from ancient times to present days. But the social, economic, and legal positions of slaves, well, they vastly differed. And there were different systems of slavery in different times and places, too. But slavery actually can be traced back to the earliest records that we know of, such as the Mesopotamian Code of Hammurabi. Now, that goes back to 1860 BC. And that refers to an established institution that was common among ancient peoples, such as the Sumerians, ancient Egyptians, the Akkadians, Israelites, Persians, Kethites, Luwians, Moabites, Edomites, Ammonites. So we can go on, and Chaldeans even. So we can, we can show where all these different cultures and societies had different forms of slavery. Some were indentured servitude. Okay. But during the time of the hunter-gatherer populations, slavery was very rare. It developed into a system when we started to develop a social stratification. And slavery has been known in the very oldest civilizations, such as Sumer. And Sumer dates back to 3500 BC. But then we know that the Sphinx and things in Egypt, the Sphinx, some say, could be as well as 100,000 years old. It's just fact, folks. Okay? Based on the water lines of erosion and stuff. And, the times that the Nile was a lush and fertile valley in river, where today we see desertification. Okay? But we have the Byzantine Ottoman Wars and the Otto Wars in Europe, and those resulted in the taking of large numbers of Christian slaves. So slavery has been common within much of Europe and the British Isles, even mostly during the Dark Ages, but it continued into the Middle Ages too. The Dutch, French, Spanish, Portuguese, British, Arabs, and even a number of West African kingdoms played a prominent role in the Atlantic slave trade, especially after 1600. And, the fact remains, there's a David Forsyth in a book that he wrote. He states that the fact remains that at the beginning of the 19th century, which was in the 1800s, an estimated, are you ready? An estimated 3/4 of all people alive were trapped in bondage against their will, either in some form of slavery or serfdom. Let me repeat that. In the 1800s, it's estimated 3/4 of all people that were alive at that time were trapped in some kind of bondage, whether it be in the form of slavery or serfdom, which is indentured. Okay? So, even though slavery is not legal anywhere in the world, per se, human trafficking still, to this day, and it's in our headlines of our news and alternative news even right now tonight as we speak, it remains an international problem, and there are an estimated 25 to 40 million people that are still living in illegal slavery today. Shoot, even during the 1983 to 2005, the Second Sudanese Civil War, people were taken into slavery. And there was slavery in Mauritania, but it was criminalized in August of 2000. But in that country, it's estimated that up to 600,000 men, women, and children, now that's about 20% of their population, are still, right now today, currently enslaved. And many of them are used as bonded labor. So the evidence is out, and it was all merged into the late 1990s of systematic slavery in all of your coca plantations in West Africa, which, by the way, if you don't know, coca is cacao is the chocolate, and slavery industry go hand in hand there. And let's not forget also the mines. You know, I saw a very disturbing video earlier this week of a little 8-year-old boy that is caught up, and I forget what the name of the country is over there in Africa, but they're mining something for the Chinese over there that they need for the phones. I forget what the name of the mineral is. But the conditions are absolutely horrific. And this little boy, oh my God, they treat him so bad. But and you know, he's talking in his native language, and someone's interpreting. But you know, he's saying, "I don't want to go back tomorrow. It's so hard." And this boy, he's a little bitty boy, and they've got him working, and they send these kids down into these mine shafts that are hand dug, and they have no safety gear. They have nothing. And many of them, and there's a lot of cave-ins too. And these kids die down there, and they're 6, 7, and 8 years old. And, you know, someone asked, because I posted that video, and someone said, you know, what can we do about this? And I came back and I said, the only thing that I can suggest is that, you know, we start appealing to that government in that country and put the pressure on them that they get child labor laws, and, you know, where they can't work them that young. And then start making, get the government to set up safety, like we have here. You know, safety rules where they can't just do this kind of stuff. But you have these wholesalers, Chinese businessmen, that are over there, you know, buying this stuff. And if they don't produce it, because see, they have to smelt it right there on the premise of these mines. And if it's not smelted right, then these Chinese businessmen don't buy it. And then everybody that worked in that particular mine in the smelting process and everything, they get punished. I mean, it's, whoa, I have no idea. But I mean, you got your blood diamonds. There was a movie with, I can't think of the guy's name now, DiCaprio. They did the movie about the blood diamond mining and stuff over there. Oh, if you guys had, whoa, that's just horrific. So, you know, these are the things that go on. And I think that most people, it's out of sight, out of mind, so we don't know about these things, but this is all going on in the third world countries. And it's called exploiting their people as chattel, for lack of a better way to say it. It is what it is, you know? Now, there was a company in the 1600s. It was called the Royal African Company, and it was supplying slaves to Jamestown. And that was the start of the English slave trade. And now I will get into actually how that all came about here, long about this same time. And it's going to be shocking, guaranteed. But as early as 1618, King James the First granted a patent to this company, the Royal African Company, and because they wanted to trade gold and precious woods in Africa, and there's other groups also received rights to trade in Africa, but they didn't really deal in the slave trade in any major way. So the English involvement in the slave trade would later intensify long about 1663. And this was when a new patent was issued to the Company of the Royal Adventurers. That's what they were called. And England realized the money that could be made trading slaves to the West Indies and Virginia. And so by 1668, over a quarter of the new company's profit was derived from the slave trade. And the Africans in Virginia's early years, and the first documented arrival of Africans to Virginia was in 1619. And that's when an English warship, the White Lion, arrived at Point Comfort, which is now present-day Hampton. But these African captives had been forcibly removed from a Portuguese slave ship, subsequent to being attacked by the White Lion and another English warship. So there was about 20-odd Africans on the White Lion, and they were traded to colonial officials for food. And so these Africans were much-needed workers to cultivate the tobacco, because by that time it was a new cash crop for Virginia. And this institution of slavery slowly crept into the Virginia legislation. And this is what's going to shock you how it actually all took place. But we'll get to that in a minute. But by 1660, slavery as we think of it today, it all was established in Virginia. And this tobacco industry was a very labor-intense, and so they were needing more and more workers. And so more and more Africans were in demand, and the slave ships and the British government, everybody, they's making money. And we won't even talk about the Spanish situation in Columbus with his fake behind. But this is how, and this company had agents there in Jamestown. And so these merchants in London that associated with the residents of Jamestown, Virginia, were also heavily involved in the slave trade. And this, they would have, the city sale block and everything where they would sell these slaves that just had newly came in. But now I'm going to give you a side note on that. Actually, we've been lied to, because you see the real, true history of who these slaves were and are is that they were the Africans who had came over here thousands and thousands of years ago, who were the true Native Americans. And they were taken back. This is documented in Columbus's notes in his diary. But these Native Americans, Africans, that had been here and now this was their land, they were shipped back to Europe. And then from Europe, back to Africa. Okay? So a lot of these slaves, so-called slaves, were, when they brought them back over here on the slave ships, they were actually returning them to their home. That's the truth, folks. They have gave us the story of slavery in reverse. Do your homework. Do your research. You'll find what we're telling you is true. Okay? But by that time, and then they were able to say they were African Americans. Because you see, the elites, they know. They know the true history. But here again, nothing but lies. Everybody that, is on top of the situation gets to tell his story, his history. But it doesn't make it true, does it? No. No. I'm not going to keep you guys too long. And try to find my other article here. Hope it's this one. Yes, this one. I actually was shocked when I read this today because I started doing my research. I mean, I've been researching, different things through the week. But the father of American slavery was a black man. You heard me right. Yep. Strange as it may seem. And it was over a simple little ruling in a legal issue over an indentured servant. Okay? Yeah. Well, Black history remembrance began as Negro History Week in 1926 by Carter G. Woodson, a son of former slaves. The second week of February was chosen in honor of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln, because they were both born in that week. I guess that's been a good reason, whatever. And in 1976, the entire month was declared Black History Month. So now, to the beginning. It was well known that the first colonials arrived on these shores following the settlement of Jamestown. In fact, my family, the Doles, were one of the first to crawl off the boat there in Virginia. And they got crawled off onto the shores and followed the settlement of Jamestown by Virginia Company in 1607. But perhaps what's not so well known is the fact that following the 30 Years' War, the European economy was extremely depressed. So consequently, many skilled and unskilled laborers there were out of work. And so the New World looked pretty lucrative to them. It offered them a chance that they didn't have in Europe. And so according to some reports, about a half to two-thirds of the immigrants that came to the American colonies arrived as indentured servants. And this included some Africans who arrived in Jamestown in 1619. And this distinction is critical. Indentured servants were not slaves. So the first blacks to arrive in America, they were not slaves, but they were indentured servants. So in 1619, all the indentured servants, didn't matter whether they were black or white, had specific periods of time that they had to be in servitude. Most time it ranged from 4 to 7 years. And they received exactly the same treatment and rewards, but at the conclusion of their servitude, each of them was entitled to their freedom, citizenship. But what they did was they granted them land grant of 25 to 50 acres. So throughout this early colonial period, now this is by order of the king, keep in mind. So throughout the early colonial period, when all the land was held in trust for the king, the basis of land deposition were grants. And these were dispensed by the local government in accordance with the king's wishes. So now these land grants in Virginia were issued with a particular system. And under this system, every person who paid his own way to Virginia was entitled to 50 acres of land. And that was it was known as a head right. Head as your head, right. And there was no stigma attached, and all families, black or white, enjoyed all the rights and privileges of other citizens in the community. A father could indenture a family of 4. And since each family member was entitled to 50 acres, at the conclusion of the period of servitude, they were given their freedom. And the family would qualify and be issued a parcel of 200 acres. Not bad, eh? So using this method, one colonist by the name of Anthony Johnson, by indenturing his own family members, was able to secure 250 acres of land. His sons, utilizing that same strategy, gained an additional 650 acres through indenturing their children. And so the Johnsons settled Pocatello Creek, which I think now is called Virginia Beach, on the eastern shore of Virginia, and thrived for almost 40 years. So for the indentured, there were both economic and civil benefits associated with this practice. Now, British law protected the rights of the individual, and the master's power over his indentured servants was limited. And so there was a specific skill that had to be taught. Now the Virginia Company come along, and they changed the rules. And they would now allow anyone to pay a person's transportation to the colony in exchange for a period of servitude, subject to certain caveats. Under this new ruling, knowledge or of a skill or any kind was not included in this contract, and whoever paid the cost for them to get them over here received the 50 acres of land for each passage that they purchased per person. So these indentured servants would now get nothing but a trip. And a lot of times they found themselves without rights or freedom. As one white indentured servant said best, Thomas Best wrote from Virginia in 1623, "My master Atkins hath sold me for 150 pounds sterling like a damn slave." Indentured servants, especially whites, could and often did slip away, become part of another settlement, and they just disappeared. They blended in. And a permanent, economically beneficial solution for the elites was sought, and they implemented it. I'll leave it up to them. Oh, yeah, those nice little pesky elites. Okay? And, of course, the Bible points out a common failing and path to social injustice, and it goes like this. The love of money is the root of all evil. I'd like to add a little to that. Money per se is not evil. It's the intent behind it and what we use it for. And unfortunately, it's been used for a lot of wrong reasons. Okay? It's the love of it. It's not the actual money itself. But, the majority think that the Bible is a religious book designed to promote religion. In actuality, there's 7 references to religion in the Bible, and 6 of them are negative. So, here, history takes a bizarre turn. It really is a bizarre turn. So, part of the problem with facts is that they can cause discomfort when they don't conform to our preconceived notions. We all know that. Not once have I ever heard a whisper of this, and I thought I knew, I guess I'm guilty like everybody else of just accepting the normal story out here. Okay? But the origins of slavery in the English colonies is not what we've been taught, or what we've been led to believe, and let us believe it. Why correct it, right? And so talk about political incorrectness. So remember this aforementioned Anthony Johnson? He raised livestock, prospered, and as was customary with prosperous landowners, indentured one black and several white servants. Johnson had sued in court and won several cases, but one case in particular would set the stage for a dramatic shift in the workforce. And there are several reports as to the origin of this landmark case, which would indelibly change the American culture landscape and impact relationships between blacks and whites for centuries and even up to this modern day. So, here's what one report says, that a gentleman by the name of John Casser, a black indentured servant. The story goes that he swindled Johnson out of the remainder of his servitude time. He hadn't served up all his time. And then another report says that the family convinced Johnson to free Casser. And then so yet another report says Casser convinced a white neighbor by the name of Robert Parker that he was being illegally detained, that he'd already served his indentured time. Well, whatever the reason, doesn't matter, whatever the reason, Johnson wasn't satisfied with status quo and all that, so he took Casser and Parker to court, alleging that Casser had not been obtained as a servant, but as a slave. Now, understand the true significance of what I'm about to say. So Johnson wasn't suing to have John Casser fulfill some measure of whatever was claimed that he still owed in his debt of servitude. See? No. Instead, he insisted the court grant his petition that he had the Negro for his life. And he was claiming the services of John Casser for the remainder of his natural life. And to my knowledge, there's no earlier records of judicial support given to slavery in Virginia, except as punishment for crimes and stuff. So Anthony Johnson was asking the court to award him John Kaiser, who had committed no crime as a slave. Parker and one other influential landowner, both of them white, sided with Kaiser, this black owner. However, the court ruled in Johnson's favor. Johnson's also a black man. In the original language, taken from the original documents, is the decision of the county court, and it was called the Court of Northampton, 8th of March, 1654. Whereas complaint was this day made to ye court, the humble petition of Anthony Johnson, Negro, against Mr. Robert Parker. You need to read that again? Whereas complaint was this day made to the court by the humble petition of Anthony Johnson, Negro, against Mr. Robert Parker, that he detained one John Kaiser, a Negro, the plaintiff's servants under pretense that the said John Kaiser is a free man. The court seriously considering and maturely weighing the premises do find that the said Mr. Robert Parker might unrightly keep the said Negro, John Kaiser, from his rightful master, Anthony Johnson, as it appears by the deposition of Captain Samuel Goldsmith and many probably circumstances. Be therefore the judgment of the court and ordered that said John Kaiser, Negro, shall withforth be turned into the service of his said master, Anthony Johnson, and that the said Mr. Robert Parker make payment of all charges in the suit and execution. March 8, year 1654. This is apparently the first legal sanction of slavery, not for a crime, that you would be sentenced into slavery for the rest of your life, because he had committed no crime, this John Kaiser. But this was the first legal sanction of slavery in the New World. Johnson, who had himself been captured in Angola and brought to America as an indentured servant, was a black man. And from evidence found in the earliest legal documents, Anthony Johnson must be recognized as the nation's first official legal slaveholder. So he is the father of legalized slavery in America as a black man. I rest my case. We didn't know that one, did we? Well, I guess I got everybody quiet on that. Huh. Well, JB, I want to give a shout out to you and IQD Calls. And there you are, Rodney.
Hey, I'm listening.
What say ye to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, it's that we've been lied to so much, Smith.
Oh boy.
It's
oh boy.
Okay, but keep in mind, my friend, that we have to call. I mean, I think that you provided some excellent information, and I really appreciate it. I'm sure everyone else on the call does as well. Okay, but you know, to continue on, and this is my mindset. Okay, we cannot continue on with this black and white issue.
We cannot.
Black and white discussion, because what happens is that we're completely allowing a form of negativity to still be out there.
Right.
And I'm not saying what you're saying is causing the negativity, but I'm saying is how we all present the information to the public. Okay?
Correct.
You know,
just that little bit right there. See, majority of the people, and it's been this blaming, this back and forth of the blaming, and most people, you know, there was another clip that I put up today too, Rodney, and it was, you know, this white guy, he has spent $8 million of his own money to, there's a plantation that he has renovated, and he put all the names of the slaves up there, and people come there. You know, he's renovated the whole place, and he has a church, and he has sculptures of people in there. You know, he made it come to life. and showing what that truly was. It's a memorial. That's what it is. Like a museum. I guess that was the best word to say. A slavery museum, which I think it should be done. I'm proud of him. He spent 16 years of his life and $8 million of his money, and it has been a journey for him. You can see it on his face. And he said, most white folks, they say, I don't understand why they just don't get over it. And he said, unless you know what the it is, don't ask the question. And on his journey, he found out what the it is. There's no acknowledgement for the fact. There's no formal apologies by those in power. But I think that we all need to understand at this point, this day and time, we are all slaves to the corporation.
Absolutely. But keep this in mind, okay? The real teachings of, and I'm going to put this in parentheses, okay? Of the real events of the past, not history. The real events of the past, okay, are not taught because of the fact that, in all actuality, Europeans were enslaved first.
Yes, the Irish.
And I think that we need to a lot of Spain, Great Britain. Let me put it this way, okay? The process of what took place between 700 and 800 AD, all the way up to 17 to 1800, okay? If you look at the royal arms in Europe, Germany, Liechtenstein, Great Britain, okay? And let's call it for what it is. They were Moors.
That's right.
Okay. So the point I'm trying to
make is that the Moors actually reigned and ruled Spain for 800 years, wasn't it?
That's right, and that's my point. And we, the Moors, my people, okay, we basically took control of a large part of Europe, okay, and of course we went there to bring the Europeans out of darkness. That's basically what happened, okay. Because the light was brought to the Europeans, okay? But at the same time,
because they were dying of the plague.
That's right. But at the same time, we did some negative things, okay? In which today, so-called black people, Moors, okay, are experiencing the same thing, and it's karma.
It's karma.
But the problem is that here on this land, the truth of the real events of the past is not taught. Nope. So so-called black people continue on in calling the race game, okay? Calling the situation racism when they have no clue of the real events of the past, nor be able to connect to why we're in the situation that we're in.
Exactly.
When Europeans are sitting back saying, "Hey, I'm not a racist," in all actuality, they're not. It's just that they said someone join in. Okay, the things that were done back then were horrific. Okay?
Exactly.
And what?
I blocked you out there. Hello.
Horrific as well. You see, so it's the battle between the Christians and the Muslims. Let's call it what it is.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the United States was created to stop all of that. That's why we have the State of the Union. And we need to all come to the understanding that is what it is, and we need to move forward with love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And I want to make one more point, Midwest, and that is this. You had mentioned the Bible. Okay? Now, a lot of the Bible is alluding to law. Okay? The last part of Psalms, okay? What is a covenant? It's an agreement. It's a form of constitution. Okay? What is the State of the Union?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? People need to start waking up and looking at these things because of the fact that there's something going on called divide and conquer.
That's correct.
People don't start waking up. This so-called great experiment is over with.
And that's correct.
And that old saying in the Bible states that the time has come for every man, woman, and child should worship under their own vine and fig tree.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that means the same thing happened in Germany. Everybody got to go home.
That's right.
So if we're going to make this thing work, let's everybody start being honorable.
Exactly.
Everyone's been enslaved. And my people need to sit back and come to realize that was the fact that we did that to the Europeans.
Yeah.
See?
There's not a group of people or ethnic group of people across this planet that over the thousands of years have not in some form, either on the receiving end or the giving or being the slave, that has not been involved in this whole horrific thing.
Absolutely.
There's not one group out here that can say they're clean of that.
That's right.
So we all need to stop pulling up the past. I'm not saying forget it, but you need to stop, everyone out here, including myself, we all need to stop wanting to hold on to that history and continue to act as though it's happening right now today, and that there's no resolve, because there is. And it's called love your neighbor as you would love yourself.
That's right. But people also on both sides need to stop continuing on with the lie for those that are in the know.
Exactly.
See,
exactly.
And I'm speaking of those people who are in power.
Uh-huh.
They
need to come clean, but I don't expect them to do that, Rodney.
I know. Well, it's up to us to do that.
Exactly.
See?
Exactly.
Because
and that's why they must be taken out of their power position seats.
That's right.
One way or the other. But I believe that if we can get them out of their power positions, then we will have our paradigm shift, because we are our brother and sister's keeper. When one are harmed, all are harmed. When one is helped, all are helped.
Mm-hmm.
And it's time to start living up to that creed, because it is a fact, a scientific, spiritual fact, that we all are interconnected across this whole globe. We all are part of that unity consciousness.
Right.
And once we fully embrace that and engage it, then, as Michael Jackson says, if you don't like what you see around you, take a look in the mirror and change that man or woman, and you'll see a better world.
Mm-hmm.
Make this place a better world for you and me and the children. And our children are our future. All this sick, warped child molestation, child murder, sacrifice, and kidnapping them, and the human trafficking, that has got to be brought in check. Hunt them down wherever the white knights, white hats, you around the world, wherever you have to go to hunt these people down, do it. And do it quickly. Because that's got to stop. Oh my God, it just makes me so sick to my stomach to even think about what these children are going through.
It's crazy.
And people don't know how many children go missing just here in this country a year.
Well, one thing they could do is take notice back in the day of how many missing children used to display on the milk carton.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Well, it's, man. And it's so deep. It's permeated into the very fabric of the culture of this country, of Europe. I mean, and it's just become a way of life over there in the Middle East and different places. And I mean, and we have to restore the woman to her rightful place. You know, the men.
That's what people cannot accept.
I know. And where can we lay that at the feet of blank? The Roman Catholic Church. Because the Roman Catholic Church also invented Islam. And they are totally patriarchal. That's why they don't allow women to be priests either. Woman is a second-class citizen.
Mm-hmm.
And back in ancient Egypt, the woman was reverenced. In fact, she ruled. For a period of time, it was matriarchal.
That's right.
And until we establish that balance again of masculine, feminine energies and power, the world's going to be out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we have to restore now. I'm not saying we go all the way back the opposite direction and let it be totally feminine energy. There has to be a balancing of right and left. Even within ourselves, within the brain. Okay? Most of us operate from the left side of the brain because we're living in a patriarchal world. But we now have to get over to the right side, which is the feminine side, and balance those. That's just like in your native indigenous tribes. The women sat in on the councils, and their word was highly reverenced.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're the givers of life. We bring forth the life out of our wombs. Therefore, we're going to try to protect that life quicker, and we're not going to be so fast to want to run off to war. We're going to sit and debate it for a while.
Yeah.
Because we know we're going to lose our children in that war.
That's right. You had the Stargate. That's what it is.
Absolutely. And so this was a way to suppress Mother Earth because Mother Earth is also feminine.
Mm-hmm.
She bears forth life for all of us, sustains us all. And so this was a way to suppress the Earth by suppressing women, the feminine energy.
Yep.
And by taking this off of the 13-moon calendar, putting this on the 12. Mm-hmm. Because at one time, all women of childbearing age, all were in sync with the moon cycles, and they had their cycle all together. Everyone was in a biorhythm with the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And we're way out of rhythm with her now.
And what's the female name of the moon?
Luna.
There you go.
Luna.
There you
and
go.
Sol. And that's her husband.
Mm-hmm.
Earth's husband is Sol. And every spring, he sends her forth his seed. Just like a man gives his seed to a woman in the temple.
Mm-hmm.
And that seed is called ATP. That's why all of a sudden we come out of winter in dormancy and you see life popping out everywhere. You see the green, chlorophyll. You know, all the plants start to come back to life. Farmer plants his seeds. They start to grow up from the sun. The sun gives life. Mm-hmm. This is how they developed Christianity.
Mm-hmm. The S-U-N.
Thank you.
Son of God that walks on water when the sun rises and both sets.
Exactly. Yes. Yep. Well, Rodney, it's been a great conversation tonight. But yes, I enjoy having you with me. Thank you for helping me co-host.
I'm surprised nobody joined in.
They're shy tonight. I don't think, maybe some just don't know what to say to the topic tonight. I don't know. I think everybody's getting a little apprehensive about what to say because they seem to not be politically correct.
Well, they're going to have to get politically correct because, you know, it's not politically
correct. It's time
correct,
for dialogue.
Yeah, it is. It really,
time
really
for dialogue.
Is.
Let's come together and let's talk as civilized people do.
Absolutely. And speak the truth
of
the documents and, more specifically, speak the truth of the the political and governmental documents that have been signed and agreed upon over the past 2.5 centuries.
That's correct.
Because if I may, Midwest, if I may read something to you real quick. Okay, this is from the Committee of Foreign Affairs, documents and memorandum from the House of Representatives, 80th Congress, 1947. Okay?
I'm going to put myself on mute here.
I'm sorry?
I said I'm going to mute, and I'll let you read that.
Okay. Now, everyone keep in mind that, that this is called the United States of America, okay? But it's not the name of the land, okay? Now, states United States rights in Morocco, okay? It says, although there are great differences in the political complexions of the three zones and in our position with respect to each, we have certain rights which are coexistent throughout Morocco. The United States has capitulatory rights, which means extraterritorial rights in Morocco, the present basis for which is the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, concluded by the United States and the Sultan of Morocco on September 16, 1836. The treaty was concluded for 50 years and was to continue in effect thereafter until denounced by one of the parties on 12-month notice. No such notice has ever been given. The United States was also a party to the Madrid Convention of July 3, 1880, which regulated the protection of Moroccan subjects by foreign powers and recognized that all powers represented at Madrid should be granted and most favored nation treatment in Morocco. A clause also contains in the Treaty of 1836. Although the French and Spanish have both approached us on several different occasions regarding the abrogation of our capitulatory rights in their respective zones, we have maintained that this is a subject which must be discussed for Morocco as a whole, and we have pointed out that any such abrogation must be approved by the United States Senate. Okay, I say that to say this. There's a lot going on today that's truthfully started off around September 11th. And as we all know, what took place on September 11th, that was the 9/11 so-called 9/11 attacks that took place in New York, in which a lot of people, it brought the people here together to look at from a negative aspect at so-called Muslims. Okay? Now, everyone keep in mind that there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on behind the scenes related to this land, and there's been a lot going on overall in the past. No, it's not to the point whereas these Muslims are going to get 70 virgins when they commit certain crimes or whatever. That is not real Islam. Islam is I, self, law, am master. The truth of Islam is love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. The Islam that we see being portrayed today is not Islam. These so-called African Americans here today are unaware of who they are, as which many of you already know that. We're trying to wake people up to understand this truth of the real events of the past because of the fact, as I mentioned earlier, if we do not, then this grand experiment may be over. The grand experiment of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice across from the eastern end to the western end, from the northern end to the southern end. It must be expressed by all people on this land because of the fact that we're gonna experience some horrible things if we do not make a change. Yes, the land, as well as other parts of northern Africa, is deemed the Moroccan Empire. But at the same time, again, the United States of America was created to stop all the wars between the Christians and the Muslims that have taken place over the past centuries. And we must get back to that loving mindset. And unfortunately, there have been people who have taken over this union, okay, to divide and conquer us, and we must bring it to an end. So with that said, Miss Midwest, I send love to everyone, send love to you. I pray that we all can come together to ensure that we can make this living experience here on this land much better than what we've experienced in the past.
And I know that we can do that.
I hope so. I really hope so.
But we do have a window of time to do this.
Exactly.
Because the seeds of war are being planted by those who would gain benefit. And you know who those are, folks.
Yep.
And they want chaos because
right.
That's how they raise their empire, order out of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget, all wars are bankers' wars.
Bankers' war, that's right.
Okay? They profit from both sides. Whoever loses gets to pay the winners' debts and theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And then they enslave that country for their people and their resources.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's been going on for a long time.
Mm-hmm. And Midwest, I'm sorry for cutting you off. One more thing.
Okay.
Every president gives a speech. It's called the State of the Union.
Right.
And that State of the Union is not about the states. Okay, as it's delivered as the states, but no one truthfully identifies who the states really are. Okay?
True.
Okay.
That's true.
The State of the Union is that the back of that dollar bill. Okay. Dollar bill has two governmental seals. Two governmental seals in one country. That is the Union, but unfortunately, every president that gives a speech only gives a speech with that bird on the podium. The other government, which is the Republic, is sitting dormant. And we need to go back to the Republic, which is based on the Constitution, because there's nothing in the Constitution that indicates democracy. Those who believe in the Republic, may God bless you and continue on in blessing your families. But those who want to move forward with the democracy, who knows what's going to happen, okay? But that's all I had to say.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, so much. And I appreciate you hanging in there with us tonight. And if you didn't catch it all, please go back to the recording. And, JB, I'm going to give a shout-out again for IQD calls. And I guess it's about time to play that music.